Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the invisible psychological barriers that are literally keeping you stuck. And more importantly, we'll look at how to finally take complete control of your life. So let's dive right in. Because if you've ever felt like you're just spinning your wheels despite desperately wanting to achieve your dreams, trust me, you are definitely not alone. We're going to break down the actual science and psychology behind taking action. So why exactly do we struggle so much to focus on our goals? Well, let's just shatter a massive myth right out of the gate. You're not lazy. And you're definitely not broken. Actually, you're likely being paralyzed by a biological mechanism that was originally designed to protect you. Our brains are incredibly powerful, but they kind of work against our modern ambitions by treating completely safe situations as if they were literally life or death scenarios.
To really understand this paralysis, we have to look at how our brains project us into these negative, completely fabricated futures. And that brings us to Section 1, Primal versus Intellectual Fears, and understanding the different types of fear. You see, there's a massive divide between two completely different types of fear. Primal fears involve real threats to our survival, like pain or literal death. Think of a lion chasing you through the jungle. But let's be honest, we rarely face primal fears nowadays. Instead, we're constantly battling intellectual fears. These are things like the fear of rejection, failure, judgment, or honestly, just made-up scenarios about starting a business. And here's the crazy part. The human brain constantly connects the mind and body. So when you project your mind into a fabricated, scary future, like, say, failing at a new job, your brain sends neuropeptides to your body. That creates hormones that make you physically feel as though a lion is actually attacking you right now. Crazy, right? This creates what the source material brilliantly calls the boogeyman effect. We literally wake up and we immediately create a boogeyman in our minds, like the fear of success or worrying about what other people might think. Then we waste all of our focus and energy fighting this imaginary boogeyman instead of taking the actual practical steps needed to succeed. I mean, you simply cannot overcome a fear that doesn't even exist in physical reality. So, the absolutely crucial point here is, how do we break out of it? Well, if you catch yourself in an intellectual fear state, you can rewire your brain using this simple three-part framework. First up, awareness. You just have to pause and notice, hey, I'm in a state of fear right now. Second, practice. Take 6 deep breaths to calm your nervous system, connect back to your heart, and ask yourself a really radical question. What is the best possible outcome? If you're going to spend time imagining the worst, you might as well try on the feelings of success. And third, repetition. You literally have to do this over and over again to physically rewire those mental pathways. This rewiring process brings us to a quote that just hits incredibly hard. All of our failure and success in life is based on our most repeated thought. So I want to ask you directly right now, what is your most repeated thought? Is it, I'm not good enough? Or is it, I'm proud of you? You know, about 90% of our thoughts are exactly the same as yesterday. You need to start looking at those thoughts like cars driving by on a highway down below you. You don't have to jump into every single car. You can just watch them and ask, is this thought actively helping me get to where I want to go? And that ties perfectly into our next concept, the identity trap. This is the fear of changing who we think we truly are, which ultimately causes us to stay in the exact same comfortable position. The source uses this fascinating anecdote about actor Jim Carrey. When he was playing comedian Andy Kaufman for a movie, Carrey became a total method actor and didn't break character for 4 whole months. By the end of it, he had basically lost himself. He didn't even know his own beliefs or what made him happy anymore. But that actually sparked an awakening. He realized that the concept of Jim Carrey was really just another character he was playing. We forget that our current identities and all of our limitations are just roles. We can absolutely choose to change them. So, if fear and a rigid sense of identity are the things holding us back, what's the ultimate cure for procrastination? That brings us to Section 2, the power of your why and finding your drive.
Just think about this massive number for a second. 100%. The source poses this really brilliant extreme hypothetical to explain it. If you were asked right now what your chances are of legally making $1 million this year, you'd probably say, 0%. But what if your entire family's lives depended on you making that $1 million? Suddenly, everybody's answer shoots straight up to 100%. The goal didn't change. The time frame didn't change. Literally, the only thing that changed was your why. And this brings up a huge paradigm shift. Motivation is fleeting. Drive is permanent. Motivation is waking up, listening to a great podcast, and feeling amazing until a single obstacle ruins your day. Drive? Drive is when you look into someone's eyes and you just know they are not stopping for anything. When your why is strong enough, the how will eventually reveal itself.
To actually find that drive, you can use a framework called the 7 levels of why. It's simple. State your goal, then ask yourself why 7 times in a row, drilling a little deeper each time. The source shares a story of a coaching client who said he wanted to make $100,000. Well, why? After asking 7 times, the real truth came out. He was divorced, his kids lived in a highly dangerous neighborhood, and he was absolutely terrified for their safety. He didn't just want money, he wanted to rescue his children. And let me tell you, finding a root cause like that eliminates procrastination instantly.
This leads us right into Section 3, the need for silence and processing the void. Because, as it turns out, once you start achieving those external goals, you might quickly realize that external success still doesn't fix the internal void.
Consider our socially acceptable addictions for a second. Workaholism, endless social media scrolling, watching TV, excessive working out. We generally think of addictions purely in terms of substances, right? But in our modern world, we constantly use busyness to avoid just sitting in silence. And why is that? Well, because when we sit in silence, we're finally forced to feel the unprocessed trauma, the grief, and all those hidden emotions we've buried deep down. Our society absolutely rewards workaholism, but let's be real, it's often just a coping mechanism to run away from ourselves. Instead of constantly running from the anxiety that silence brings, we need to shift our perspective to this beautiful distinction from Eastern philosophy: knowing yourself versus learning yourself. Knowing yourself is based entirely on the past and your old memories. Learning yourself, though, is about being deeply curious in the present moment. It's about sitting on your porch, feeling anxious, and instead of instantly picking up your phone to escape, asking yourself, what is this feeling actually trying to teach me right now?
And to physically release that anxiety, the source introduces an absolutely incredible concept: the polar bear metaphor. So there is actual footage of polar bears being tranquilized from helicopters for research. When they finally wake up, they violently convulse and shake. They do this to naturally release all that survival cortisol and adrenaline out of their bodies, so they don't carry the trauma with them. Human beings are exactly the same way. We need space, silence, and sometimes even a safe physical release, like screaming into a pillow or just having a really good cry, to just squeeze out our internal pressures.
As we clear out that trauma, we can embrace a really profound truth from C.S. Lewis. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. Realizing this allows us to completely zoom out. It gives us this beautiful duality where we can detach from the intense daily grind and recognize that our lives and the work we do are incredibly significant, yet perfectly insignificant at the exact same time. It takes the heavy pressure off, and it actually lets you bring joy and playfulness back into your everyday actions.
All right, let's land the plane here. This is Section 4, the CEO of your life and the practice of radical responsibility. This is the ultimate mental framework required to take complete control of your destiny. Consider this very, very carefully. It might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to work through. You literally have to adopt a stance of radical responsibility. The trauma you experienced as a child, the crazy setbacks you faced, those weren't your choice, and they certainly weren't your fault. But your healing, your response, and your future, those absolutely are your responsibility. You can't just wait around for someone else to come and fix it. Which leads us to what is perhaps the most jarring, yet honestly the most liberating quote in this entire explainer. Everything is your fault. The source shares a story of a mentor confronting an excuse-making 19-year-old. The mentor asked, if a company succeeds, whose fault is it? The CEO's. If it fails, the CEO's. Embracing the idea that absolutely everything in your adult life is your fault instantly incinerates the victim mindset. It empowers you. It means you hold all the cards now. You are no longer at the mercy of your circumstances. So I want to leave you with a really provocative thought to ponder today. If your life succeeds or if it fails, whose fault is it? It's time to step up, face those imaginary boogeymen, uncover your deepest why, sit in that uncomfortable silence, and become the true CEO of your life, because the ultimate outcome is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start applying these frameworks today.